Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Arsenalholics. As always, we thank you for tuning in. Raj and Aaron, and how's it going, mate? Boys?
Good evening.
Good evening. I can't believe the season's like, how many? 2 days away?
It's 2 days away from when we're recording, yeah.
How are you guys generally feeling?
Yeah, it's weird because it feels like we've talked a lot in our WhatsApp group, but this is, I mean, how many pods did we do during preseason? Hardly any, right? I think we only did two. So like it feels like we're talking about football for the first time in ages. It kind of feels weird like that. I'm not feeling great, to be honest. I think for some reason I was feeling okay about a week or so ago, but I think it's just dawned upon me that we've got a Premier League game in 2 days against a team that's just been promoted with a new stadium. I mean, what could go wrong? Do you know what I mean? And I think I just feel, for whatever reason, wholly underprepared.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited. I'm excited until I log on to Twitter, and that sucks all the life out of me because it's becoming a very depressing place. Like listening to other Arsenal fans I'm not criticizing their opinions, but the general mood on social media around Arsenal at the moment, and we will probably discuss this, seems very, very negative. But I'm actually looking forward to it because, just the fact that fans are back, we'll start going to games again, which would be good. Like last season for me, that whole closed doors football was it was basically a TV show, right? Whereas this feels like proper football is back after a long time. And I'm looking forward to that bit, going to games, watching games on TV with fans. That'll be Good Friday. Will be really good, even though we're not going. It'll be really good up until kickoff, and then we start analysing what we actually do on the pitch, and then it'll probably get depressing again.
It's interesting because, when you refer to Arsenal Twitter and the atmosphere on Arsenal Twitter, it does feel like we've hit this weird tipping point recently where, I think over the last few years, it's been getting increasingly negative. I think the negative voices have been kind of growing and growing and growing. The momentum to be negative, the kind of, I suppose, the validation you get when you say something negative or criticize the team, the manager, the whatever. I mean, it's almost like you could say Arteta out and you'd suddenly get about 1,000 new followers. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's kind of the atmosphere. But it feels like we're at this weird tipping point where I see a lot of fans now kind of on Twitter kind of saying, enough's enough. Like at some point you've just got to support this team. I see a lot of that now, and it feels like we're getting this divide that almost seems to be creating, where you've got so fans. You've got fans who I think we're saying, okay, guys, do you know what? Like, yeah, okay, we're not saying everything's great or anything, but at some point you just have to support anyone who wears the shirt, and you have to support whoever the manager is, and you have to be optimistic. Sometimes without logic, you have to be optimistic because that's kind of what it's about. And it feels like that group are gathering their own little bit of momentum. I don't know if that's what you guys have noticed.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you guys think that that's as a result of Twitter and social media? Or do you think that's more a result of kind of how fans are now represented when you look at kind of fan channels and the popularity they've gained through, well, essentially rants and kind of slagging off players and the manager and things like that?
Yeah, sorry, that's my phone. But I think it's one of those where when we go to a game, it's very, very different. You don't see a lot of that. Well, personally, I don't see a lot of that. We went to the last game of the season, the last home game against Brighton. That was a dead game, pretty much. There's nothing riding on it, and the atmosphere was still really good. I kind of hope that the game against Chelsea will be a bit like that as well, where a lot of fans are going to be back for the first time and they'll be really excited. But online, it's just a different world. There are all sorts of accounts and you don't know what their motivations are, but I'm increasingly starting to feel like a bit of an old man when I'm on Twitter these days, of all these kids and the fan accounts and how popular they are. And I'm just like, I don't get any of this. And yeah,
an interesting evolution I found as well is that you kind of had that period where say Arsenal Twitter started. You had people who went to games, people who didn't go to games. The people who didn't go to games because of Twitter just kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Obviously, that percentage vastly kind of outweighed the amount of say match going fans. And I think that some match going fans could be blamed for being quite arrogant in how they spoke on Twitter, almost like if you weren't a match going fan, if you weren't a season ticket holder, what do you know, like, and kind of almost shooting down the opinion. And that's not healthy and that's not good, and we can talk about that all day as well. But what I found something really interesting, which is it felt like the opposite has just happened. Where so I on Twitter, this happened recently, like I think even probably earlier today actually. I was engaging with someone. We were talking about supporting the team or whatever, and it was about something about Aaron Ramsdale, and I think we were sort of saying, "Oh, you got to give him a benefit of the doubt if he plays well, something." And a comment, someone referred to us as the natives, and was basically just like, "This is the problem with the natives, the natives on." Yeah, and it's like basically like saying that the narrative around this very short trip. The narrative around this is almost like the natives are ruining the club.
It's the first time a brown guy in the UK has been called a native.
Exactly. But it's really interesting because is there this mentality that's maybe realized? Is there a mentality from the global Arsenal fan base that the fans in the stadium are like letting the rest of the fans down by almost being kind of blind in their like kind of faith and loyalty to the club? It's amazing because I think to think that really shows a massive disconnect with the relationship that some people have with the club, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think we should lecture on what's right and wrong. I think, at the end of the day, we finished 8th last season. So you could very easily make a case that Arteta is the wrong guy for the job, that everything is crap, and we're going to finish 8th again or even worse. But you could spin it the other way. So I don't think we should dismiss it. But this whole online world it just seems like it's a very different way of supporting a football club. And that's, some of these fans, they watch every game, they stay up till 2, 3 a.m. So it's not saying that we're better, but it's a very, very different way to the way that I support Arsenal, and probably you guys support Arsenal. And yeah, I just find it very, very strange.
I guess a big part of the reason that we're getting, or Arsenal Twitter is, especially in the last few weeks or since the season ended, a big reason for the negativity is probably people are looking at the work we've done in the transfer market, both incomings and the players that we were looking to move on, which hasn't really happened, and are probably a bit disappointed with that. And I think there's some negativity coming from that, obviously. But I guess it's probably a good point for us to talk about how we feel the summer's gone from our perspective. We obviously know that we've not been able to, like I said, move on the players that we wanted to. I think it's just been, is the only outgoing Guendouzi? Loan obligation to buy.
Yeah, I think so.
Mavropanos went before that. Yeah. But Guendouzi, and
Saliba as well. Sorry,
yeah, Saliba on loan as well. Yeah, you're right.
So obviously there are a number of players that, going back to the end of last season, we thought were definitely on the way out, and that hasn't happened. But there have been some encouraging signs in terms of the players that we brought in. We've obviously gone really big on a centre back, Ben White, and even today we were linked with, as you said, Raj Ramsdale. It looks like it would be quite a big signing in terms of the price point anyway. And we seem to be constantly being, linked with likes of Odegaard, Maddison, strikers here and there as well. So potentially still some more work to do. But I guess, interesting just to see, how do you feel the summer's gone so far in terms of the transfer window anyway?
I think overall, where we are right now, like at this very point in time, I don't think it's gone well at all. Not at all. Sorry, that sounds extreme. I think a large reason why I don't think it's gone well at all is because I think we genuinely did have plans of selling a lot of players.
Yeah.
And you can list these players, and a lot of these players were players who potentially we were hoping for 15 to 25 million, that kind of bracket value. There were lots of players that you can list off: Maitland-Niles, Nelson, Willock, you carry on, Guendouzi, even kind of, when you, and now to think, like you said before, Miles, like, we've only sold a couple of them, and not for the amount of money that we would have hoped for, probably. I think in that it's been I wouldn't say a wholesale failure, because I don't think it's completely the club's fault. I think at the end of the day, if the bids haven't been coming in for these players, then in some ways we're right to just not sell players for the cheap. Maybe it's just the nature of the market that we're in, and in some ways you could probably say the club have done a decent job of getting to a situation where there aren't that many players in their last year that you have to sell. Maybe you can wait it out a little longer. But I think that, accompanied with, if you look at our purchases, I think it started off with a lot of promise, not only with Tavares and Lokonga kind of, there was also, we were going to get Basuma, we were all the kind of functional areas that we wanted to address. It looked like it was okay. But then, the Ben White saga kind of happened. Excellent. But other than that, geez, I think, we're a couple of days away. And I think there are so many positions that we thought we'd strengthen, and it doesn't look like we're anywhere near.
Do you reckon it's just the fact that there was just so much work to examine? I think you mentioned it one of the episodes at the back end of last season around there's just so much work to do in terms of the positions that we need to fill, players we need to replace, players come to the end of their contracts. And do you think it's just a case of this isn't the amount of work that needs to be done just can't be done in a single window, along with the other factors like COVID? It's a COVID market.
I think you're spot on. So I think it's we knew that we had a lot to do, and I think, but no one really expected us to do all of it. And the huge caveat is there's still 20 days before the window actually closes. And personally, I always, in terms of incomings, this is kind of going as I planned. I kind of thought there would be a couple at the start who would kind of set our eyes on and plan to get in, and then there would be a huge lull. And then I think the final week is going to be crazy, I think. And I think a large reason and a large part of that is because the market is really, really quiet at the moment, in terms of the fact that nobody really seems to have any money except the big, rich super clubs. And money will need to filter down through the system to make its way to different places. And I think that's been the big shock. I think we probably thought we'd be further along with sales by now, with players like Willett, like Nelson, like Maitland-Niles, players that we probably need to move on a lot of players before we can start buying in players in, like players like a striker situation we can talk about. Lacazette, I think we probably thought some bids would come in there. The Xhaka situation, we probably thought in an ideal world we would have moved him on. Bellerin, we probably thought we would have moved him on by now. And for whatever reason, nobody's really bidding competitively for our players. And we've chosen not to sell below market, whatever that market is. And now we're stuck because we probably need to sell to be able to buy.
Yeah, I see that. I think that the couple that would have surprised him the most is probably Bellerin and, to a certain extent, Eddie. I think they looked at both those players and thought, I think we'll this won't be a problem. But I think, if I was a betting man, I completely agree with what you said, Aaron, and I think that the last couple of weeks might be mental. I think Arsenal are really, really, really hopeful / optimistic of Odegaard coming on the market. Like, it really feels Real Madrid.
I saw a rumor that he might be injured now. Is that true?
Ceballos is injured.
Oh, Ceballos is injured. Okay.
Yeah, with an injury that sounds incredibly painful because it's just massive in its Latin kind of expansive name. It's huge. And you read it and you think, oh my God, like the guy's going to have his leg amputated. It's that complex a name. But apparently it's only like
just
a
4
week.
Cut.
It's like a 4 week thing. Yeah, something like that. But it feels like, the tide has changed a little bit at Real Madrid, where I think that they think that if they're going to do any kind of business, they're going to need to sell a couple of players. And I do get that impression, because the thing is, guys, wouldn't you just be so surprised? Like, so for me, if you look at the squad, if you look at the first team, it's not even a case, because there's been some people have saying, oh, the first team hasn't really changed from last season aside from Ben White. It's actually worse than that if you think about it, because if we don't have Odegaard, who was pretty much a regular fixture, from an attacking sense, we're a player down. I can't envisage us going into this season with Arteta knowing what's on the line. He must know his job is on the line somewhat this season. He must know. Eddie as well to some extent. They can't be going in without thinking they're going to pull something off.
I mean, oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, I think they obviously know what the targets are or the positions they're targeting, and I think it'll be interesting if things do happen towards the end of the window, because we could get into this position like we were last summer, where it went to the final day and we ended up triggering parties release clause, having tried to negotiate for a while all summer as well. I wanted to touch on one particular player, which was James Maddison, just because he's a player that I really like. And obviously, if we were to go and get him, it would be quite surprising in the fact that, and we've talked about this in our chats, that he isn't a traditional number 10. So would that mean a change in the system, or do you guys think that's just more agent talk, rumours, and there's not really anything behind it? I mean, he seems like the kind of player that would be very keen to come to us. And there's obviously some really, really attractive kind of attributes around him. The fact that he's English, he's young, very, very good player as well. But it seems a little bit odd that we're being linked with him when, yeah, like I said, he wouldn't necessarily slot straight into our system like Odegaard did when he came in January.
Yeah, I like him. I do. I think he's a good player. But yeah, I'm not really sure where he fits in. He's not that final third pass kind of guy. He plays is more of a number 8 type, right? Yeah, and it's a lot of money being quoted, and he's how old now? He's 28, I think.
No, he's much younger than that.
He's 24, 25, that kind of.
Yeah,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
he's 24. Well, I'm pretty sure he's 24.
He's 24. Okay.
I think I looked this up. He's 2 years older than Odegaard is.
Okay, in which case the point I was going to make is completely invalid. But no, because I think for me it was what I found strange was the fact that he seemed a bit older than the type of player that we've been going for so far, which I really like, which is that under 25 type we can keep for 6-7 years, essentially two big contracts. You look at the players that we've bought in, Tavares, Lokonga, Ben White, they're players that you would hope would stick around for 10 years. And we're building, I like the fact that we're building a team, not just for 2 seasons, like we've tried to do with some of the older players, but for the next 8 or 9 seasons, where even if it doesn't work out, you still have a decent chance of getting your money back or a certain amount back with a sale fee. And hopefully we can make some profit on some of these players if we do sell them. But yeah, like it's a lot of money. I'm kind of past that point of looking at transfer fees now, because back maybe 3-4 seasons ago, I think we used to just add them all up and be like, this player 10 million, this player 20 million, this player 30 million, sell this player for 20 million, your net spend is 30 million. But A, that doesn't really include wages. And then B, football finances are way, way more complicated than that in terms of installments and how you account for signings and account for transfer fees. That, I read that, although Grealish costs Man City 100 million, because they've given him a 6-year contract, they essentially split that fee over 6 years. So actually Man City only are effectively paying under 20 million a season for him.
You mean in how they reflect it in their books?
How they reflect it. So all they need to do is make 16 million quid back, or get that money in, which is a lot more understandable and a lot more easier to digest. So these things are really complicated. I'm not going to pretend I understand the ins and outs of it, but yeah, that's why I'm not really looking at value for money. All I care about now is, let's not do something silly like spend 75 million on Pepe when he's probably, it's probably 20 or 30 million more than he was probably worth. But let's, if a player like Ben White is available and we really do think he is going to be the centre back, then just go out and get him.
I mean, a question to you guys: would you, if Arsenal are going to spend a chunk of money, let's just, irrelevant how much it is, but let's just say if it's a choice of Maddison or Odegaard, who would you take at Arsenal?
If we assume like the same amount of money,
but let's just say, going to your point, say if you just don't care really, and let's say it doesn't stop us doing any other business. It's not like you sign one and it means
I think as a fan, right? I think Maddison probably excites me more in terms of the actual signing. Not to say that he necessarily fits the system better than Odegaard. Obviously, we've seen what Odegaard can do, but I think the fact that we've seen what Odegaard can do, he's not. I guess it was a small sample size. It was sort of 6 months, and he was injured in that period. 5 months, but injured in that period. But Maddison, yeah, I think he's a really exciting player. Good on set pieces, dead balls. he can hit them from long range. And yeah, I think the fact that, like I said before, he's English and he's young as well. I'm not saying he's obviously Odegaard's very young as well, but I think all of those factors just for me means I'd probably be a bit more excited about signing him than almost re-signing a player that we've already seen. But from, I guess, that perspective of, we talked about it, he's more of a number 8 than a 10, and we seem to have that gap in the number 10 position. Odegaard kind of makes more sense really for what we need. And like, we've already seen what he can do, right? And we kept saying, very silky player, fit straight into the system, worked well with the other players, and seemed to be kind of like a nice character, humble guy, and all of that. So I'd be happy with either, to be honest. I'd be happy with either at this stage.
I really liked Odegaard when he was here. I don't know why he gets a bit of bad press from some Arsenal fans, and some people aren't excited, but I thought he was really good. And he missed a couple of games through injury, and we clearly looked worse without him. But James Maddison also excites me for the reasons you said, Miles, and maybe that little bit of Premier League experience could be valuable for us, because we could do with a few more kind of new leaders in this team that can come in and set an example for the kind of younger players in the squad.
He does strike me as the kind of person, Maddison, who would come in and really want to do well and be successful. Like, I feel like he's probably looking for that next move where obviously he's won the cup at Leicester, but I feel like he's looking for that next move to a big club where he can almost, break into the England squad and go to that next level. And I think that might be quite a good thing for us potentially.
If I was Arteta and Edu, the way I would sell it is, we will build this team around you if you come. Like, you would be one of the main men in this Arsenal team for the next 5 or 6 years. You wouldn't come to be, at Leicester. Leicester are a great team, but that team very much seems like it was at least previously built to get the best out of Jamie Vardy. Whereas, and then you have at Leicester, they have Barnes, for example, and they've just signed a couple of other really good players as well. Whereas I think here you could say you'll be one of the first names on the team sheet every week. And, you could be a future captain. You could lead this team back into the Champions League, back into major trophy contention. And that'll be because we signed you. And that's quite an exciting thing, I think, for someone like him.
I think that's a pretty scary prospect, to be honest. I think if we, because I think if we sign Maddison, and I think, like we all agree, he's not a number 10. And I think he himself has said, I'm not a number 10. And I think if we were to sign him, we'd basically be saying, all right, we're changing our formation and we're going to make you kind of a heartbeat in that formation. That's quite a big risk to change your formation for someone who, the thing is with Maddison, he's a really exciting player. I think some of the questions I have in my mind is, I imagine part of the reason why he's leaving Leicester is because he basically lost his place last season, and he was benched for the last third, more or less. He lost.
Was he not injured? I thought he had a fairly long-term injury, and then he came back and he was sort of in and out of the team. Is that?
It's a good question. I don't know if the injury sparked him then losing his place.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
I think there's a couple of things, because then Barnes played behind, and then they moved to 2 up front with Iheanacho and Vardy, right? And then because they sometimes played 3 at the back as well. Just meant there was one less person. Yeah, but you're right. He was in and out of the team a lot.
Yeah, and I suppose where I'm going with that is, if he's a player that perhaps was surplus to requirements to some degree in that case in Leicester, is he a player that Arsenal should be building their team around? I don't know. I'd still love him as a player. I actually really like him as a player. It's just more around, I'm scared of the thought of us moving to a system to accommodate a player like that. I don't think he's quite good enough for us to do that. And assuming that we carry on in the formation that we're playing, assuming that we do the 4-2-3-1 with a number 10, completely assuming that's what we do, then for me it has to be Odegaard that you sign all the way.
If you're spending 60 million on James Maddison, you don't do that unless you're planning on effectively building a team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. So if we did that, then that's probably what we're going to do.
Squad player, right? So I hope they've had that. You would hope that they've had that conversation. They're not. We watch football. They watch football. They would know that it's not a secret that James Maddison doesn't play at 10.
Unless what they're thinking is a similar way to Buendia in the sense that Buendia wasn't a 10. And I think they have been thinking about having someone who can play in those wide positions as well. And Maddison originally used to play out on that left-hand side.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that maybe it is, maybe we want to get ourselves set up. Maybe we want a squad that can give us different options, etc. I think one thing that's interesting, guys, before, I'm sure we've got to sort of move on, is did you guys see The Athletic have put out an article about expected threat, the statistic expected threat? Have you heard about this? So it's really interesting. It's a massively depressing read if you're an Arsenal fan right through until you get towards the bottom, because effectively what it talks about, and I'm not going to do it justice, but I'll try and do it as high level and as accurate as possible. Basically, what it says is that obviously expected goals was a big thing over the last few seasons, and it had merit, and it was able to explain a bunch of things that the normal stats couldn't. But what it said was, what it doesn't necessarily measure is that during a game there are lots of situations which are more threatening than others. So, for example, if you have the ball in a certain part of the field, and if you make a pass in a certain direction, that can suddenly make the situation more threatening than it was before that happened, right? So before the ball was in that zone, or before a ball was moved into a different zone, or every time something happens, the situation gets more threatening. And you could put a metric around, so more threatening is in the more likely to score a goal, i.e., so like if you think about it this way, if a player has the ball on the penalty spot, with the opposition's goals in front of them, versus in their own penalty area, it's multiple times more threatening when you are, in front of the opposition's goal. Do you know what I mean? Right? So because you're far more likely to score when you're in that position. So expected threat, it's this stat, therefore, that they're trying to put lots and lots of thought around. And so when you go through the list, it looks at lots of different dimensions to this. So it kind of looks at saying, okay, what players have the most expected threat through their carries? What players kind of have the most amount of expected threat through long balls, or whatever, effectively, like different ways of measuring how threatening a player adds, how much more threat a player adds to your team, basically. They're on the vast majority of these tables, and so they list the top 20 players. There's no Arsenal player in that top 20 list.
I was going to say,
not at all. There's not at all, apart from one table at the bottom. And that table at the bottom was, I can't remember what the title was, but it was used to describe players who, when they receive the ball, make the situation more threatening. So the thing that they do after they get the ball, how much more threatening do they make it? Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
So, and basically number one was Kevin De Bruyne. And on the same score, pretty much exactly the same score as Kevin De Bruyne, was Martin Odegaard. And so that was really interesting for me, because that basically indicates, out of the players in the Premier League, the only person, based on last season, the only player who took the situation that they were in and made it more threatening more consistently was Odegaard. And thinking, so that for me was like, that's kind of, when you have a number 10, that's like exactly what you want.
Yeah,
right?
Ideally you'd want it for more than just your number 10. And I think that's
of course. I guess yeah.
That's probably quite a feature of our play and how poor I thought we were going forward last season. But I take your point. I think we absolutely need to add a creative player in the next 2 weeks. Otherwise, we'll be in big trouble.
Yeah, I think what I'm sort of referring to is going full circle right back to the beginning when you said, Aaron, about some of the bad press that Odegaard gets. And I just don't really understand that. Like, I think we were significantly better when he came into the team. But also, we look at Martinelli, to ESR and these guys, and we think, we're so optimistic because they're young or whatever. He's 22 as well. He's still so young.
People like new things. Because if we hadn't signed Martin Odegaard over, on loan, and we're being linked with him now, I guarantee you everyone would be going crazy.
100% agree.
It's the fact that we've seen him, he's played for us, and he's been linked, and he's not new and shiny, and he probably doesn't cost as much. People get excited over him. It's it's weird, the transfer windows where there's players you've never heard of, and then all of a sudden you're disappointed that we don't get them. So, like Ben White, for example, I'd seen Ben White once or twice, but if you told me in like April or May that we're going to bid 50 million for Ben White, would have told you guys you're absolutely crazy. But like, imagine like the Ben White deal just broke down and we didn't get it. People will be rioting. So
that's a fair point.
It's weird how transfer windows work. And like Bissouma is a perfect example, right? A very good player. I think he'll be great for us. But the fact that like we didn't get him when Buendia didn't come, the player that I really liked, I was really annoyed because I was like, I really like Buendia. I think he's gonna be a great player, and then we didn't get him for whatever reason. I hope there is a reason for that. Media, Twitter, it all plays with your emotions and how you support this club.
Absolutely. I guess, yeah, we could talk about a number of targets, right, that we've been linked with. There was a Ramsdale story that broke today that we're how far along is that potential deal? I think looks like it could happen, but
would make him the sixth most expensive Premier League goalkeeper.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Like, maybe we don't go into too much detail, but like overall, are you guys like, oh my god, this guy is terrible? Are you guys like, this guy is the?
He doesn't come with the best rep,
goalkeeping?
does he? Like, I can't. I'll be honest and say I can't say that I've seen him kind of week in, week out as with a lot of the players that we're linked with, but he went away with England. I mean, he got into the England squad, so I guess he's got some merit on the back of that. But he seems to have played in teams that don't have great defenses, and therefore he's probably kind of, in terms of goals conceded, not looked great as a result of that. But honestly, I don't know how good he is, but it's obviously a lot of money, and therefore it's quite a big risk, because I guess the way the club are looking at it is that it looks like Leno, if this is all true, it looks like Leno's not going to be hanging around for too much longer, maybe another half season or a season. So they're basically planning for the next number one rather than buying a backup now. And then having to look for a number one.
Yeah, because there's no way we're spending the rumored 40 million or something, was it? Or 30 million?
25 plus add-on, okay. So
yeah,
30 million.
We wouldn't do that on a backup.
No,
surely.
Definitely not. I'd hope not. Yeah. No, you wouldn't, right? Because people just tend to go and get like free transfers and players out of contract with a backup. So, so if you assume that it's going to be our number one, I mean, I quite like the fact that the club are forward thinking in that sense, and they're sort of almost embedding him into the squad and into the team, going to give him some game time this season with a view to him being number one next season. But in terms of his actual kind of quality, I question marks based on things I've seen and kind of reaction. And, you start seeing these things being pulled up on Twitter, like stats and people highlighting his mistakes and things, but I haven't been watching him week in, week out to really make a judgment. I mean, he's young, he's English again, so all those things are positive, but I mean, it kind of reminded me of when we signed Richard Wright going back, 20 years ago?
For a lot of money, right?
For a lot of money, and it was
from Ipswich.
And it didn't work out for him, obviously, and it just reminds me of that, really, a keeper with a half decent reputation, but more so, he's a potentially very good young English goalkeeper, and hopefully if we do get him, it turns out differently than it did for Richard Wright.
I think it doesn't help him that he followed Dean Henderson at Sheffield United when Sheffield United had this amazing season, and over the criticisms, he won Player of the Season at Sheffield United this season, and he won Player of the Season at Bournemouth the season previous to that, and I think he won Player of the Season at his previous club before that. Like, he can't be as bad as I think some people are making out. In fact, I go as far as saying I don't think he can be bad to win Player of the. It's very easy for fans for us to get to go against a goalkeeper when things aren't good. If you get relegated and you get voted Player of the Season by your fans, come on, you can't be that bad.
No, but then. Oh, go on.
No, so I for some reason that season when he was at Bournemouth, I remember him very, very well, and I thought actually he was quite good. And then when he went to Sheffield United, I didn't really watch much of Sheffield United last season, but then I was listening to the Arscast, and they interviewed someone who hosted a Sheffield United podcast, and they're basically saying the first half of the season he was rubbish, because I think he was coming into the team. Sheffield United had loads of injured defenders, and their defense was constantly exposed, and he lost a lot of confidence and kept making mistakes. But then he eventually turned it around, and the second half of the season he was basically their best player. I think there's one game Sheffield United won at Old Trafford, I think last season. They won 1-0, and he was one of the man of the match basically, and kept them in it. So, and I watched that game, and I remember he is a very good shot stopper, and I've always been impressed by that. The bit that I don't really get is I've never really seen him like play out from the back, which is what I assume we'd want from a goalkeeper, because Bournemouth or Sheffield United, as far as I know, they don't really play out from the back. Not many teams do in the league. So that's the bit I find interesting. So I wonder how you scout a goalkeeper for like passing ability when they don't really display that characteristic. So yeah, that's a bit I find interesting. But I think for the right amount of money, he's worth a gamble, but 20 million for me seems a bit much.
Feels like it's almost the going rate for sort of English players, really. Look, I think it's worth kind of mentioning that Emi Martinez turned out to be a really good goalkeeper in the end, right? And he's having this really good career right now at Aston Villa. But at 23, he was on loan at Wolves in the Championship. At 24, he was at Getafe on loan, as a backup keeper at Getafe. At 25, he was at Reading. Do you know what I mean? Like in the Championship, Ramsdale's 23. He's played in the Premier League for a couple of years as a starting goalkeeper. There's got to be something about him. Yeah. And you've got to assume that goalkeepers, in the nature that they are, they tend to peak much later. And, there's clearly something the club see in him. I'd be intrigued. I actually think it'll pan out like you said, Mize, and that if we sign him, I don't think we're signing him necessarily because we know for a fact Leno's going to go or whatever. I think we're basically just saying, well, we can't guarantee Leno is going to hang around forever. He's not making sounds like he wants to end his career here or whatever. And I think we're probably just going, do you know what? Whatever the case, let's get another keeper in who could be a long-term prospect, who could just challenge him even in the shortest term. So, he could challenge Leno this season. Why not? And then, may the best goalkeeper win. And then if Leno wants to go, he can go, and it's not as big a deal.
The only issue I've got with that is, right, if for whatever reason this deal doesn't come off, let's just say hypothetically, we can't agree a fee, with a few million short, whatever. And then we go into, let's say, the final couple of days of the window, or possibly even past the window into the season with basically no number two. That's like a massive risk.
I can't see that happening. That would be beyond incompetent.
But the reason I don't see it happening either, because of what's broken today, it sounds like we're pretty advanced with Ramsdale.
No, but even if we don't get Ramsdale, I think if it doesn't work out, you really think they're just going to be like,
no, they'll probably do like a Matt Ryan,
like a Matt
type
Ryan,
of thing.
yeah.
But I guess it's just me being probably quite nervous, the fact that we now go into Friday with no number two, and possibly the Chelsea game.
Yeah. That's pretty mental when you think about it.
Yeah. It's funny. We say the number two. It's just because we rate the number two so low.
Yeah.
Who is a number two? Is it
Runnison,
or is it?
Yeah, it's Runnison. They've got Carl Hein, right?
I think Okonkwo's there.
Okonkwo, yeah.
I thought he'd be pushing for number two, but yeah. I mean, yeah, that's another area that would be
that Runnison deal just so bad. You think about it, right? Like, the reason we bought him, was it last season?
Yeah.
Was it last season?
Last season was to be our number two, right? Or even number three, whatever, right? But now all of a sudden we just don't regard him as an option at all, because he's that bad. Because whoever scouted him, if you believe the story that we just listened to our goalkeeping coach, and we just went and bought him because he was like £1 million. That's a deal that's screwed us over completely, because it means that we have to go and spend this money now. But then also Leno, like if we had known Leno wasn't going to renew, we might have thought about the Martinez situation a bit differently back then. I'm not saying, like, at the time selling Martinez made sense because we thought Leno was going to be our number one for the next 4, 5, 6 years. if Leno said, I'm not signing a new contract, we would have been like, well, so this, we're going to keep Emmy and do what we can and get what we can get for Leno at the time.
We don't know that Leno's not, I think I think the problem is when a player gives an interview and unless they come out with the words of, I want to stay at this club for the rest of my life, like it's always interpreted as, oh, so-and-so's not committing their future.
There's no way that we would be spending 20 to 30 million on Ramsdale this summer.
But maybe we
know that Leno's going to stay.
But maybe but maybe it's a performance thing. Maybe Arteta and the coaches, maybe they think actually Leno isn't as good as we thought he was, or he can't do the things that we wanted. I mean, there's been lots of.
So you think we'll sell him because this is the final year of his contract, right?
Maybe, mate, or maybe we offer him a new contract, but essentially we're signing Ramsdale. We're saying, look, if Ramsdale's a better option, then Ramsdale kind of takes over, and then fine, we would sell Leno. But there's been those kind of clips from pre-season of Arteta getting kind of frustrated with Leno in a couple of games. For not playing out from the back when he wanted him to play out from the back, and
maybe
I don't know.
I don't know. It just seems like if it is a problem with performance, I think it's probably like the fifth or sixth biggest problem we have with the first 11 right now. Than spending 30 million to rectify it. I mean, like, who knows, but it doesn't seem likely to me.
Yeah, as I say, we could probably talk about our transfer situation for a lot longer, but we should probably move on, I guess, because, season's starting in a couple of days. We're obviously kicking it off against Brentford, but I guess going into the new season, I mean, we touched on it right at the start, right? We're kind of not feeling great about it. But how do you guys think we're going to do this season, just based on where we are currently? I guess, things could change in the next couple of weeks, but how do you guys think we're going to do? How are you feeling?
It very much depends with what our attack ends up looking like come the end of this month. If it's this attack we have now, which is effectively minus Odegaard that we had last season. So we were like a player down, Ceballos has gone, not that Ceballos added much. That's putting a lot of pressure on players like Smith Rowe and Saka to bail us out. And watching the bits I have had of pre-season, not that you can read too much into pre-season, but it very much looked like a continuation of the way and the patterns of play that we saw all of last season. And that was with Odegaard in the team. So this is without Odegaard in the team. The attack for me looks considerably worse. And we've got this very, very awkward situation with our strikers now, which seems quite chaotic, where Lacazette is going into his final year of his contract. Aubameyang's on a big contract, but not really playing that well. And there are a lot of problems in that attack. Defense, I'm actually not that worried about. I hope we cut out the mistakes, because that's the only times we really concede are if teams very rarely cut us open. And if they do cut us open, it's usually quite a good goal. It's mostly mistakes from either our central midfield or our defenders. And I'm not too worried about that because we've got Ben White and we've got a bit more rotation there. But the attack really worries me. And I just want to get excited when I watch Arsenal go forward, and I'm not. And that's the bit that I'm struggling with.
I completely concur. I think from a defensive standpoint, you're taking the third best defense last season, and you've added a £50 million centre back. You've added another backup left back, and your young players like your Gabriel, Tierney are a year older. So absolutely no concerns with.
We've got 3 right backs as well.
Exactly, take your pick. No concerns about that. I think we haven't spoken about Lokonga that much, and I think that he's reminding me of a sort of prime Alex Song at the moment. I know it's just pre-season, but that's kind of what he reminds me of. Sort of a defensive midfielder who's just able to pick just some crazy pass. It looks great. But from attacking standpoint, I completely concur with what you're saying, Aaron, and I'm like massively concerned about it. Like, because on the back of last season, fine, and we don't have Odegaard, and even at the end of last season, we didn't have strikers that were firing. You shouldn't judge pre-season. We shouldn't really kind of glean too much from pre-season, but we've not looked good in an attacking sense from preseason at all. There's no player that scored more than 2 goals. 2 players have scored 2 goals. A whole bunch of other players have scored 1 goal. Oba scored at all? I think he scored 1. I think
he scored.
Yeah, in one of the earlier games against maybe Hibs, I think he scored.
I don't think he did.
I don't think he scored against anyone.
Maybe he hasn't.
Oh, Hibs was the one where he missed loads of sitters, didn't he? I think.
So Oba hasn't scored a goal. Our goal scorers in pre-season have been Tavares 1, ESR 1, Balogun 1, Pepe 1, Chambers 1, Aziz 1, Tierney 1, Xhaka 1, Lacazette 2, and Eddie 2. That's it.
Yeah, the striker situation for me is quite worrying. And then you throw on top of that the fact that we don't really have a number 1 creative player outside of Smith Rowe and Saka, whatever their roles in the team are. What I was hoping for was that, Aubameyang had a difficult season last season, both on the pitch and off the pitch. And I was kind of just hoping that issue would sort itself out during pre-season because he's had a break. He hasn't really played abroad internationally that much. And he could just come in and at the start, he was getting those chances. He was missing the chances, but he was getting the chances. Now, in the last few games, he's not even getting the chances. Against Spurs, he played out left. And that, for me, was an issue I wish we didn't have. I wish he'd coming into the start of the season, having scored a few goals, having found his touch again, having found his form again. And that's a concern. And what I can't work out is it the player or is it the way this team is set up? I think it's probably a bit of both. But
a bit of both.
The Aubameyang situation is concerning me, not just because it's pre-season, but it's a continuation of what we'd seen in the second half of the season.
On Friday, do you see? Because I'd be very surprised if he starts down the left on Friday or even going into the season. Do you guys think there's a chance that he might go with Lacazette through the middle and Aubameyang on the left? I mean, I guess there are reasons for it. No Martinelli, I assume he's not going to be ready. Just come back from the Olympics. Saka's obviously come back late as well. I think William was injured for the last preseason game. Was he not?
I don't think he was injured. He just was mysteriously not in the squad.
Yeah, there was talk that it was because of a move pending or potentially, but I then read afterwards that he was. Oh, was it? Or maybe.
I think he was just not in the squad for whatever reason. It doesn't say why.
And hopefully he's not in the squad on Friday. But yeah, because I'd be quite interested. I mean, it's obviously going to be interesting to see what Arteta does, but it'll be really painful to watch Aubameyang down the left and us have another one of those games where, like you said, Aaron, and it's just a bit toothless and a bit lackluster, and there's no kind of cutting edge, and then we're all screaming at the TV saying, playing through the middle and play your creative players around him. And if he doesn't do that to try and either accommodate Lacazette for whatever reason, maybe because of lack of number 10, like he did last season, or trying to accommodate both of them.
I think because of availability, he'll play a team that's very close to the team that played against Tottenham the other day. So I think I actually wrote my. Do you know what team I wrote down? Should I tell you my lineup? So I had Leno in goal.
You heard or you had?
No. This is my predicted lineup.
All right, good.
Yeah. So I've got Leno in goal. I've got Chambers at right back. I've got Tierney at left back. I've got Mari and White as centre backs. I've got Lokonga and Xhaka in the centre of mid. And I've got Pepe, ESR, and Oba and Laka playing up top. And that is purely based on kind of what we played against Tottenham, the availability of other players. The only alternative to that I can potentially see is Bellerin maybe coming in over Chambers. And maybe with that front four, hypothetically, he could play Oba at up top, and he could play Laka at number 10, which he's done before. But I can't see personnel being that different from that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I would have had Bellerin at right back.
If you had Bellerin at right back, that would have been the exact team that played against Spurs.
Yeah. I almost think that's why he played it.
Do you guys? Sorry, go on, Aaron.
No, I think, although I do have a sneaky suspicion he might give Saka.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
I think he might start Saka. We really, really need to win that game going into Chelsea and City, because if we don't, that could be 0 from 9. And that's certainly not ideal.
He's just back though.
He's just back, and this is the thing, right? We kind of talked about this when he was potentially going to be picked for England, and we were sort of debating about should he go, should he not, from a fitness perspective. But he's 19. He's not 20 yet, is he? But whatever, 19, 20. And I guess I just said this before. I think at that age, not that it doesn't matter, but I think he'll just be ready to go. Like, I don't think he needs as much time as, say, a Laka or an Oba does. I know he played a fair number of minutes in the Euros, but it's been, how many weeks has he had off now? Probably like 3-4 weeks. I think it's been 4 weeks since the final. And maybe he hasn't had as long of a preseason as everyone else, but I think he's just one of these players that he's just ready to go. And I think, like you said, Aaron, and I think Arteta might feel the need to chuck him in almost.
You could always bring him off the bench though, right? Like if you need it.
You could, but who knows what the situation might be by the time that comes around with like 60th, 70th minute. The thing that scares me and worries me is if he goes safe and plays an Elneny Xhaka central midfield. I hope he doesn't, because Lokonga's clearly shown enough, right? He's clearly shown enough.
Yeah, I think was it Sunday was an audition, and he didn't, it wasn't world class or anything, but he certainly showed more than Elneny.
I mean, but yeah, I guess the reason I'm saying that is just we've been saying he's a very risk-averse manager, right? We've been saying that every time we've done a post-match review, pretty much. And first game of the season, he might be a bit concerned about chucking in a fairly young player for his debut. Kind of like you said, Raj, they've just come up, they've just been promoted, they've got nothing to lose, everything to kind of go for, essentially. And, it would be a big scalp. First game of the new stadium, right? First competitive game of the new stadium. That's quite, with fans. No, I think, is it? Oh, did they have it last season?
Yeah, they played the stadium behind closed doors.
Okay. Yeah. And kind of everything for them to potentially, kind of take the game to us. And that's one concern I've got, is that he might just go quite conservative and play it safe.
The problem is conservative is worse. It's not like it's playing Elneny over Lokonga makes us worse. Playing, what were we suggesting? Like Sat Willian or someone else out wide.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Makes us worse. So this isn't about being defensive. This is
it's more about going with what he knows as opposed to risking something he doesn't.
What you could hope is that, when we played the first game of last season away at Fulham, there were similar dynamics. It was Fulham's return to the Premier League, and it could have gone against us that day. But I really felt what we did a good job that day was basically saying, do you know what, they're probably going to make mistakes. The occasion may get to them. They're probably going to make mistakes. Let's and I think that's what we did. We kind of just let the quality shine through and just stayed pretty calm. And I think he might look at this team now and he might go, do you know what? If I can start with Tierney, Mari, and Ben White, and really whoever else at right back, I think he might feel quite good with that. And I think he might feel less compelled to just go ultra defensive and put an Elneny on the pitch, which I agree would just be a really silly thing to do. Because at the same time, I think Arsenal Football Club, I think last season were guilty of not remembering that we're Arsenal Football Club at times. And
it would just be so depressing. See, first game of the new season, 2021. I'm playing Xhaka and Elneny, like the ultimate throwback midfield to them. Both of them played under Wenger, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And the Xhaka situation, we can debate it, but I just felt like it was time to move on from Xhaka. The fact that he's still here just feels like a lingering thing from an era gone by. We're desperately trying to move on. But yeah, I mean, I guess the question for you guys is, if you were going to tweak this lineup to your ideal lineup to say, who would you look to replace? Like, would you take Lacazette out? Would you take Aubameyang out? I'm guessing you wouldn't take Smith Rowe out or Lokonga out, and Partey would come in. But
with the players,
how far of this is from like your ideal lineup within reason?
I think it's pretty much there. Ideally, I'd probably want Gabriel in over Mari. Prefer him. And I think the obvious one is Saka, right? If we're saying Lokonga's going to start because Partey's injured, I think the other one is Saka. And I wouldn't take Aubameyang out. I think he's obviously he's had a bad season. He's not in good form and he hasn't looked good preseason. But I don't think he's lost it. And there's obviously a lot of talk that post signing a new massive contract or his age, whatever it could be. But I think he could just write off last season. He can start fresh this season. And I don't think it's going to take much more than a goal or two for him to maybe hit a purple patch of form. Like, he's clearly still got it. And
well, does he though? That's what I mean. You say clearly, but what evidence is there?
I mean, I think part of it is what you said, right? Creativity has been a problem, and it's not like we're putting them on a plate for him every game. So I think that lacking or that missing from the team doesn't really help him when he's a striker that isn't offering much else aside from, his goal scoring ability, right? But I mean, I don't know. I just don't think a player of that quality with a record that he's had over 10 years, I don't know how long it's been, 10 years from prior to Dortmund, and then since joining us, like his goals per game is ridiculous. Not ridiculous, but it's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. Maybe not top tier, but maybe just a level below.
But he's 20 goals a season every season, aside from last season, isn't he? So, and
even last season, he had a bad season by standards, but he still got sort of 10 league goals in 26 games, I think it was, something like that. It's not great, but it's not awful. So I fully expect...
that sounds pretty awful. To go from like 25 league goals to 10.
Well, I mean, he would have got, say, if he played every game, he would have got probably 15, 16.
Was he
goals.
I don't remember him being injured.
Malaria, didn't he? So
yeah, of course. Yeah.
But it's kind of down to his reputation as well, isn't it? Because, like, if Ollie Watkins puts similar numbers in, people are like, oh, wow, because he's just young. He's a young kind of up-and-coming player. Exactly. So, I mean, look, I guess I would lean towards agreeing with Mize on this. I think he's earned the right to be able to be given the respect to say, you had a bad season, you've not lost it. But I think at this age, if you have two back-to-back bad seasons, then I think it gets a little bit funny, doesn't it?
Put it this way: if someone bid 30 million for Aubameyang tomorrow, would you sell him?
I probably would, because just again his age, and I think like we are going to need to at some point, whether it's this season or next season or season, we're going to have to move on from him because of his age.
Yeah.
We are going to have to do that.
But then what can we?
It's always the question is what do you do with it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's always what are you getting instead of that? It's the money is one thing, but who are we going to bring in?
Yeah, exactly.
You just can't answer that, right? I'd probably say yes. If you're just saying, would you take 30 million? I'd probably say yes as well. Yeah, for his when you consider his age, 2 years left on his current deal, hell of a lot of wages to save as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring someone else in. Yeah, I would probably say yeah. Interestingly, there's some news just spoken, nothing major, but we've been drawn to West Brom away in the League Cup.
West Brom away. It's such a boring tie. I would have wanted someone like lower league.
I think Raj thought we were like, who did you think we were about to sign, mate?
I don't know. I thought, I maybe. I think that's.
Sorry, mate. I should have said breaking, but not particularly interesting.
That's just a bit annoying. Isn't it?
It's just dull. It's not a home game. I don't know.
It would be good to do well in the cups this season as well. Obviously, no Europe. It's not the most ideal tie to.
But I would have just wanted something different rather than an boring old Premier League club, like a
lower league,
like a Tranmere or I don't know, Tranmere is still in the Football League, but or a Charlton or something like that. That would have been fun.
Ipswich.
Yeah, Ipswich. Yeah.
And the Super Cup's gone to penalties as well.
Oh, has it?
Completely forgot about that game.
Chelsea have just missed their first penalty.
Who missed it?
Havertz.
Okay. Interesting.
Saved.
What was it? 0-0?
1-1.
All right.
1-1. All right, guys. Well, we let's talk about our predictions for Brentford then on Friday. Like you said, Aaron, and it's kind of imperative that we get, I was about to say a result, but I guess a win with the fact that we've got Chelsea, although we did quite well against Chelsea last season.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't go into that game.
Win all three somehow.
The City game's the one that you'd almost say, I don't know, unless there's something wrong with City that day.
It off.
Not write it off, but you can almost accept a loss because they're just so far ahead of us. But it's important that we do get a win because it won't be good if we go into the Chelsea. If we come out of the Chelsea game with no points, then 0 points from 9 games and from 9 points or 3 games, and Arteta's fully under the pressure. Yeah, I mean, look, how do you guys think we're going to do on Friday? The other thing I don't like as well, which is nothing you can do about it, is that we're kicking off the season on a Friday night, and it's just got along with everything else that we've said about them being
Everyone
promoted,
watching.
yeah, it's just like it's just set up for it to go
Ivan
horribly
Toney
wrong.
hat trick.
I really like him as well, and really, really like him as a player. But yeah, how do you guys think it's going to go? He looks good, yeah.
I think we'll win. I think we just need to manage the game, and ultimately, like as dismal as we get about Arsenal, and we were dismal last year. The second half of last season, we forget we were actually quite good.
Yeah.
When we like second or third in the league in terms of like that whole second half, the table thing they do. Defensively, we were like second or third in the league overall the whole season, I think. And if we are going to show we have improved from last season, just go there, turn up, win, and move on to the next game. And I think I'm going to be optimistic and think we'll win. Mainly because the alternative just like I don't really want to think about. So I will go. Yeah. Do you want to score?
Yeah.
I will go 2-1.
2-1 to Arsenal, yeah?
Yeah.
I think Arsenal are going to win 3-1. I think so it's funny because Brentford are a bit like, in some ways, we're a bit like Arsenal last season, in the sense that I think they had that great a first half of the season. They ended really well. And they kind of ended up finishing third in the championship because I think they won like 4 out of their last 5 games or something. So it was a really, really good end. But over the course of the season, I don't know how good a team they actually were. And it sounds like they were very heavily reliant on Ivan Toney, and there's a creative player in the centre.
Mbemba, I can't say his name.
And they were a great duo. But I wonder how good their defense is. And listen, at the end of the day, championship's one thing. Opening game of the season, if you've got Pepe running against you, how many times do you think the defenders would have played someone who is of that level? So I think stuff like that might end up making the difference.
Yeah, as long as we don't let the occasion get to us, that's the big thing. Like they'll have fans, they'll be up for it, it'll be packed. It'll be loud. We just need to manage the first 20 minutes of the game and don't encourage them. Deal with the threats that they have, and we should be. It's still Brentford at the end of the day. It's not.
That's it.
But we're Arsenal, and they'll be saying at the end of the day, it's just Arsenal.
What about you? What do you reckon, Mice?
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to judge how we're looking going into this season. We talked about all the transfers and the players that we brought in and the ones that we haven't. And we're going back to Xhaka. We're going back to people like Bellerin, areas that we haven't addressed. And like the front line or the kind of front four, lack of creativity does worry me. And maybe it won't affect us too much on Friday, but I think it will going into the season if we don't sign anyone. But I feel like we might just start off a little bit rusty and a bit slow on Friday. So I'm going to go for a draw. Probably think like a 1-1. I'm not particularly confident, to be honest.
The downside of no Europe is we've got a whole week to analyze every Premier League game, which is, if we lose regularly, it's not going to be going to be fun.
Yeah.
Hey, we're looking forward to it, and we believe. We have hope.
Yes,
of course. All right. Well, fairly positive, I guess, in terms of how we think Friday's going to go. And we normally do this in our chat, but I guess as we're chatting, we may as well do it. We may as well talk about it now. So we normally cover like season predictions. So how we think Arsenal are going to do across the competitions that we're in, and specific players in terms of kind of player of the season, that kind of thing. We never get it right, really. I don't think. We're normally fairly far off, but we'll try again. All right. So league finished then. Where do you guys think we're going to finish in the league this season?
You go.
Why don't you go first, Mike?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I think we'll do better than last season. I don't think it'd be too hard to achieve that. But I'm going to go. I don't think we'll finish top 4. I think we're still quite far off. So I'm going to go 6th. I'm going to go respectable 6th.
Who do you see finishing above us then?
City, Chelsea, United, Liverpool. City, Chelsea, United, Liverpool. and I'm going to go.
Don't say Spurs.
No, I don't. I don't know. It depends what happens with Harry Kane, to be honest. I was thinking Leicester, and I'm thinking if we take Maddison off them, but give them 70 or 80 million to spend in the next couple of weeks, that would be interesting to see what happens. If Kane does leave, I think Spurs will struggle, and I think we probably will finish above them. But then there's a big if there. I don't know if they're going to let him go. So I'm not sure. Probably one of those teams, I would say. One of those two teams. But yeah, I think we'll have, in terms of points haul, I think it will be decent. Like, I don't think we'll be too far off top four. But I think it'll be one of those seasons where I don't think we'll ever actually have I think we'll always be far enough off that we're never really going to be challenging for fourth place.
What do you, without wanting to take this too off topic, what do you think is acceptable for Arteta to, and the team and the team around him to say they've done well this season?
Based on what we spent so far?
Because what we've spent so far is a reflection of what our ambitions are, right? So if we do sign a creative player, if we don't, what would you be happy with?
The reason I asked is based on what we spent so far is because there's obviously a number of deals that we seem to be restricted in doing because of the lack of outgoings, right? The lack of money coming in. I think, I don't know, it's quite a hard one. This is why I'm struggling with it, because I feel like they're obviously willing to spend the money in a couple of other areas, and they've not been able to do it yet. And they've got targets identified. So I'm kind of feeling like if they were to secure those targets, we're talking like a proper number 10, another right back, a backup goalkeeper. Maybe that's not key in terms of where you finish the league, but you know what I mean. Then I would say the top four.
Oh, really?
Well, I think if you go and get everyone if Arteta says these are the players that I need, these are positions I need to fill, and I don't want to go and get another Willian. I don't want to go and get another David Luiz.
Are you including like a new striker in that, or are you just saying, like, put it this way: if we signed a number 10 and a right back,
number 10 is the key one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really? Right back potentially as well, but I think I said this last season as well. I think you can potentially manage with a right back like Chambers. I mean, we've got 3 decent options. They're not bad options, right? And so I think number 10 is the key one. Striker wise, I mean, even if you went and signed a striker, unless Lacazette or Aubameyang are going out, you're playing one up top. How's that really going to work? Unless you're then saying Aubameyang's going to play wide, potentially Lacazette leaves, then doesn't even look like that's going to happen. Then maybe, but again, we're not. We've been linked with Martinez. We've been linked with Tammy Abraham. I think there was another guy, possibly, I can't remember. There's another guy that we're linked with.
Correa.
Who?
Correa? Is he
Fiorentina? Was it
Lazio?
Lazio.
Are you thinking about that Vlahovic?
Yeah.
That's the guy.
Yeah. I wasn't going to try and pronounce his name. Yeah, that guy. So, like, I don't know if even signing a striker would make it obviously would make a massive difference. But if you have an on fire Aubameyang back in the team, you're not complaining, right? He's going to get you 20 goals this season. So I would say if they go and get all the targets that they feel like they need, then Arteta hasn't really got a leg to stand. And I'd say the ambition has to be top 4.
Cool. I mean, I don't think, it hit me yesterday when I was thinking about this. I don't see how we finish 4th unless one of the other teams above us like absolutely bottle it. Just because it just feels like the players they're signing are very much unobtainable for us. Like players like Sancho, Varane, Lukaku, Grealish. We're talking like 80, 90 million pound players and big wages on top of that. And they would have to drop their levels significantly to allow us to sneak in. The other team is and Liverpool. You're looking at who haven't really signed a lot, and I kind of see as not having super levels of money, and you don't really expect Liverpool to drop out unless they have another horror show. And that's quite depressing. I think even if we sign 2 or 3 players, there's still some work for us to do to break into that top 4.
I definitely agree with that. But I think that there'll be an element where I think there'll be an element where Arteta and Edu and the board will think that we're potentially never going to be able to be spending that kind of money. And they have to believe in what they're trying to do right now, in the sense that, getting a bunch of these young players and trying to almost make them 80, 90 million pound kind of value players. And I think if you think about that as a trajectory, like, we weren't that far off last season, points wise, off kind of 4th, 5th. Like, we weren't that far.
6 points, I think, off Chelsea.
Yeah. And that's not that much. And so, yes.
But the problem is that wasn't a Chelsea that sat Lampard because he was underperforming. That was a Liverpool that had one of their worst ever winters.
But it could happen. And I think that's the
point. It could happen, yeah. We
like
still need that. I think my point is we're really relying on one club to absolutely get it very wrong for us to sneak in.
I mean, the other factor is no Europe, right? And we've been, no, even not we have, but a lot of people say, right? I think one of the 4 of us have said it, no Europe, and you can concentrate on your league campaign. And in theory, you should perform better in the league with no distractions, fitter players, except, less fatigue, all the rest of it. So, like Raj was saying, maybe it's a chance. There is an opportunity. There's a bit of a window there. I completely agree with you, Aaron. And the top 4, if you look at the last couple of seasons, are kind of miles ahead of us, and they seem to be moving further ahead of us with the players that they're signing and the money that they're spending. But it's not like we haven't spent money and we're not looking to spend money this summer. Like, we've gone and bought a bloody expensive centre back.
Right.
And we're still being linked with, potentially some big moves. And that's why I'm saying, if we go and sign a proper number 10, and I guess that means spending more money, then and if Aubameyang's on form, I guess there's quite a lot of ifs and things that need to fall into place. But I'm not saying that I think we're going to finish top 4, because obviously I predicted 6. But if you're asking what I think the board would expect based on spending that level of money, then I would say they expect top 4, at least a very, very strong push for top 4, where we're there until the last couple of games, that kind of thing.
I think 5th for me is anything below 5th for me is failure. But anything above 5th for me is massively overachieving. I think there's this weird gap, because actually look at that top 4, and I think we're quite a while away from them, and that's quite sad in its own right. But actually, I think we should be comfortably finishing above teams like Leicester and Spurs.
I agree with that. I completely agree with that assessment. I'd say if we finish top 4, I think that's an outrageously good achievement. Like, I think that would be a fantastic achievement. Even with the benefit of not playing in Europe, I think it's still an amazing achievement given the strength of those teams that we just discussed. But I completely agree as well. I think 6th is a failure.
Yeah, I agree.
We had a car crash first half of last season. And, if we look at Tottenham as an example, were they one more point than us in the end of the season, whatever. And that was a car crash first half of the season. Tottenham haven't improved from last season, have they? Considerably, in terms of their squad, are they? We should
Nuno in charge as well, which who knows how that could go.
We shouldn't. I think, and they've got this stupid European competition that they're in as well, right? We can't. For me, it's 5th. I think is okay. Do you know what? Fair play. That's okay. Well done. Be pretty happy. Arteta keeps his job, I think, if we're 5th. I think if we're 6th, I think it's a failure. I think he'll lose his job if we're 6th and we don't win the FA Cup.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where if we're 6th, but we're 1 point off 4th,
I was just about
one
to
of
say,
those that's okay, right?
Yeah,
but
okay.
If we're comfortably 6th, we were pretty comfortable, I wouldn't say comfortably 8th, but we deserved 8th last season, I think. Then that's there's a big gap between us and Spurs, and there's a big gap between us and Leicester. I think that is, for me, even if you look at what we've spent in the summer, and maybe it's due to the fact that we might not have spent efficiently this summer, that for me isn't good enough.
So where do you think we're going to finish?
I think we'll finish 5th.
5th, yeah.
Raj? I think 5th as well. Yeah.
Okay. And just for the sake of predictions, how do you feel like we're going to do in the cups?
I think we're going to go out to West Brom in the League Cup. I'm not actually joking. I think I'm really annoyed about that fixture now. I think we go out to West Brom. I think it'll be one of those like we'll try and rest some players, and because that's the only competition that we have to like really, I suppose, rotate in some ways, right? Because we'll probably want to win the FA Cup. I think it'll be a bit of a disjointed team. West Brom will be up for it. Like, I don't know, that. FA Cup, do you know what? I always think because of our pedigree in the FA Cup, I always like over egg it. And I think I predicted us to be winners last season and we weren't. So I'm not going to do that this season. I'm going to say we get to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup.
I think the opposite. I think we'll win the League Cup.
For the first time ever?
Yeah, for the first time ever, because we just haven't won it. And actually, maybe if we keep all these subs, we can probably...
first time ever. We've won it before.
Yeah, first time in recent... Have we ever won the League Cup?
No, when have we won the League?
93, we've done the cup double.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So we haven't won it since it is. You're right. The
League Cup, yeah. What, as in the sponsorship?
Sorry. Do you know what I meant to say?
It's called the Milk Cup back then.
No, Wenger never won the League Cup.
Ah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And so I think since the Wenger era, we've not won the League Cup. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Bad history on my part. I apologize. Yeah, I think we'll win the League Cup for the first time in a long time. But I think the FA Cup will not work out for us this year for some reason.
So we're going like the third round.
Yeah.
Do we start in the third round? All the Premier League.
FA Cup we start in the third round. Yeah.
Okay.
But League Cup we go in the second round. And just other news. Apparently, talks with Aaron Ramsdale are going to break down because he couldn't agree a fee.
No way. Oh wow.
So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing because the fee we already said was too high. Well, I thought it was too high.
Yeah, Arsenal's interest in Aaron Ramsdale is on the brink of breaking down after the clubs failed to agree on evaluation. Okay, I don't think that's the end of it.
Who's reported that?
Gunner Blog. Gunner Blog. Sorry. It was in The Athletic, but I think the guy who writes for Gunner Blog was the contributor, right?
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. So what did you say, Aaron, in terms of the FA Cup? Did you say not third round?
I'll go fourth round.
Fourth round. Okay. I think we'll get to the semis of the League Cup. It's still 2 legs, isn't it? It's gone back to 2 legs, I think.
Oh, is it?
I think so. I could be wrong, but yeah, I think we'll probably face a half decent team by that point. Probably like City, who win that competition every season. And the FA Cup, I don't think we're going to do very well in it. Even though I think we should. I think that's a competition that we should go all out for.
We do it. We do usually. It's not like we
do, but like last
don't
season,
prioritize it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
We just who did we go?
To Southampton.
And we beat them. We beat them in the league like 3 days later, didn't we?
Yeah. I'm gonna go quarterfinals. I think you said quarterfinals as well, didn't you, Roger?
It would be really good because we haven't got European games to have a Wembley trip this season.
Yeah, that would be nice. And okay, we'll try and wrap up with just one final question or 2 final questions. So I wanted to know, who do you think is going to be our player of the season, and who do you think is going to be, I guess, the surprise player of the season? So we're obviously slating a number of our players, but who do you think is going to be the player that pleasantly surprises us?
I think our player of the season will be Smith Rowe.
Oh. Okay.
Good job. I think he's class. Another thing, I think Saka is kind of like, everyone knows he's good. And I think whereas I think Smith Rowe's probably got a few more levels to go up, and I've seen him just slowly getting better.
Okay.
Surprise player of the season. I don't know. Smith Rowe, would he be a surprise if he was player of the season?
Do you mean more breakthrough player? Is
kind of breakthrough breakthrough. Okay, breakthrough. But then I guess when you say breakthrough, you're kind of indicating it's a player that's never really played for the first team, right? And someone you think is going to come through from like one of the youth teams or whatever. I guess I
guess you can't say ESR because we know he's good.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
Here's a bit of a rogue prediction. I think it might be Eddie Nketiah. I think we're gonna. I can see a circumstance of events where we don't end up selling him because whatever happens, and then we end up playing him because everyone else is rubbish, and he does okay.
Okay. Interesting.
That's completely wild card. I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's who I'd go for.
Okay. Raj?
I think Pepe is going to be our player of the season. I think it's the perfect storm for him, actually. Because I think that it's one of those that clearly on the basis of the back end of last season, he's kind of gone, okay, actually, I get what I'm doing now. And I understand how to play in this league and how to, create in this league and how to score in this league. And I think Arteta's had a lot to do with that. And I think it's a perfect storm because I think that he is also in a team where he's playing with Smith Rowe and playing with Saka, where it's not like the opposition can kind of go, okay, it's not like we're in a bit of a Crystal Palace situation where we can kind of go, okay, let's just go for Zaha and everything else will be okay. I think with Pepe, you can't as a team just come up with a tactic to kind of, deal with Pepe. And as a result of that, I think that people will be looking at Saka, be looking at ASR, and I think Pepe will have a great season as a result of that. And I genuinely think he'll get. There's a big call. I think he'll get 20 goals next season.
Oh wow!
In the league,
I don't know in the league.
We haven't got many other games, have we?
Yeah, I think he'll get 20 goals in all competitions next season. And in terms of breakthrough or like kind of surprise player, okay, so I'm going to say Lokonga.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in some ways, maybe that's an easy one.
Easy
to say.
one, really.
So I think so. The other one that I'm thinking is I think maybe Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because I think it's one of these things that now everyone will be looking at Ben White, right? Because he's kind of like the big name that's come in, and he's the kind of right-sided centre half. And I think that Gabriel, there was lots, in my opinion, and I think he still divides opinion a little bit. But I really liked Gabriel last season. I thought he showed every ingredient to be a good defender, and there were a couple of things that he did which showed a bit of naivety, but overall there were some games where I thought he was just brilliant.
You say this, right, but he's been bought in as our first choice centre back, right? How much did we pay for him?
20 million.
I was only 20 million. Okay,
it's close to 30, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was 30, but I was going to say it's an 18 million centre back partnership.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You kind of would hope that this is.
But we signed him at 22, so it wasn't like we signed him going like he's the real deal now. I think there was a longer term.
Yeah, the plan is for these two to be the real deal for the next 5-6 years. You'd hope, right?
Yeah, or I don't. Okay, let's not go into Saliba but absolutely. And but I think that he's got a season under his belt, and he's ended up in some ways having a fairly restful preseason because he got injured at the beginning of the Olympics and didn't really play for for Brazil.
Yeah.
So, I think it could be, and I think now the focus has taken off him. This will all get thrown into the bin where if Mari just kind of ends up going on a on a number of on a great run. But yeah, okay, so that's my out. So I gave you two answers there: the Lokonga and Gabriel, I guess.
Okay. Player of the season. I was thinking Pepe. To be fair, I think he's going to have a very good season. He's due a good season, but I guess to be different, I'll go with, if he stays fit, I'll go with Kieran Tierney. Obvious reasons, right? There's not really much to say about why. But yeah, I think he could potentially have a really, really good season, especially if the defense is solid, as in the centre backs next to him, and he's got license to roam. But I think it's the fitness, really. He seems to be picking up these injuries after Nero cursed last season. So I'll go Tierney. I'll go Tierney player of the season.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Quick question, a quick poll. Which team do you think is going to be the biggest flop? The biggest underachievers in the Premier League, yeah.
I was going to say Everton.
That's a good shout.
Everton.
Because you don't trust Rafa?
But I don't really know if they've really strengthened that much. I'm not sure. And I don't think they looked particularly great last season, did they? They were kind of average, ended up finishing fairly low down the table, didn't they? Despite all of Calvert-Lewin's goals, and I think they had a good start to the season. Just don't really feel like they're going to be that impressive. Yeah, not really a Rafa thing. I think Rafa could do a half decent job, he'd be pretty solid and stuff, but it's not going to take. I don't think he's going to take him to the next level. But now I've said that, they'll probably be challenging for top four or something. Everton or probably Spurs.
hopefully. Right.
Those are two good. So I think Aston Villa could, well, but at the end of the day, like, it's difficult because what is underachieving for Aston Villa and what is hard, because they've been a relegation battling side who finished 11th last season, but that was an anomaly. So what is a good season?
I reckon
for
if
them?
Aston Villa finished below 15th this season, that would be really bad for them, right?
Yeah, so I don't think they'll do that bad, but I think so I don't see Villa finishing in the top half. Yeah, I don't think they'll finish.
Which I think is an underachievement for them this summer.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that might be a bit of an underachievement. I think that's a really good shout on Everton, but I think Spurs are gonna. I think it's hard for Spurs because I think that when like, even if I almost think it's worse if Harry Kane doesn't go in some ways, because I think if you're a squad, your star player like wants to leave. He wants to leave. He's just there because like you didn't let him go. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just a vibe to it that I imagine isn't fun. And Nuno is an interesting manager in that, like, interesting, and I mean that by I'm not really sure if he's any good or not. So we'll see. We'll see.
I think Southampton might get relegated.
Oh, someone else said that to me yesterday.
But I have a sneaky feeling Leicester might not do so well this season.
That's a good shout as well.
They could also do really well and go and win the league. So who knows?
Okay, cool. So halfway through, what did I say? Tierney and surprise player. Surprise player. You guys named some good ones. Granit Xhaka. I think Granit Xhaka is going to have a really good season. I think, I think he showed what he can do in the Euros. World Cup next season. I think he's got a bit of a point to prove as well now. Like, Roma didn't stump up the money for him. Obviously, he wanted to go, but I think he's got a bit of a point to prove to say, you guys should have paid whatever it was for me. And I think
let's see.
Oh, okay. I think he genuinely likes the club. He needed that change, right? And obviously, it looks like he's going to stay now. So I think. I don't think he's ever been a player who doesn't give his all. So he's clearly a good player. It's just inconsistency.
I feel for him a bit as well, because I feel that there'll be a lot of pressure on him as well, because he can't, if he goes out on the pitch and looks like at any point he's not giving 100%, then fans will be on his back in, being like, oh, he wanted to leave. He doesn't want to be here. Like, there'll be that. And I think he'll have that, but I actually agree with you, Miles. I think it could be. I think it's interesting that none of us have spoken about Partey in this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, he's not playing around, is he? He's injured again.
That sneaky little 50 million signing.
Yeah, our main signing last season, wasn't he? So.
Okay, cool. Right. So we go again in 2 days.
Yeah,
and we'll be back.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. We'll be back after the game to discuss and tear it apart. But hopefully, we'll be talking about a win, eh? All right, boys. Really good chat. And we'll speak soon. But thanks very much. And cheers for tuning in.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.